Currently we have 19 sworn officers and 7 dispatch personnel and a handful of records and volunteers. So we manage about 30 employees with reserves. Well, as most law enforcement agencies these days, I think technology plays a huge role in what we do, not only from investigative purposes, but in improving our services to the community. How we manage that is where the issue comes in for smaller agencies. The management of it consisting of not just obtaining the equipment. I mean, sometimes you can obtain equipment through grant funding or even budgeting, but it's the ongoing costs of training for that equipment, where you're going to put that equipment, what kind of server that equipment's going to go on, the maintenance of that, and then probably last, I think a critical part that gets forgot is the replacement of that equipment when the service life runs out in 3 to 5 years or whenever that is. And I think that whole concept gets left out when agencies are looking at equipment. What are we going to do down the road with this equipment? Because obviously we obtain the equipment because we need it. We want to keep the equipment, the technology or whatever it is, and who's going to do that? One of the other real big issues with technology, if it gets into the computer systems and the servers, and typically you need to have somebody that knows what they're doing as far as the technology of it, the IT portion, staffing of that, and a lot of smaller agencies don't have that type of staff in their cities. We share our IT staff with the whole city, so whether it's to the finance department or city hall, the police department and fire department, we share an IT person that comes once a week on a part-time basis for a couple hours a week. We can't wait till Thursday when he comes. We need to have something fixed right away because we need it. So we at times train our police officers, which sometimes works if it's not too technical, because they can do that and it gives them extra duties. But the problem with that is it takes them off the street. Collateral assignments are good, but for my patrol officers for a small city, our primary role is to take care of the community, and I don't particularly wish to have them off the street doing technology stuff where an IT person should, or a private citizen, don't need a sworn officer to. So that the challenges of the technology is huge for small agencies. In our agency, I mean, we've looked at probably every technology that's out there, and when we look at the technology or equipment, we kind of have to step back and really do an analysis on whether that applies, one, to our community. Do we need to have that? Can we afford it is actually the biggest issue, but if we can't afford it or can find grant funding, is that something we really need to spend that money on? And we've recently, in the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years, we've really moved forward with technology. We've gotten in-car cameras, and that may seem kind of late because in-car cameras have been around for a long time, but for some of the smaller agencies, the need finally came to a point in our community where we need to have that in-car cameras to protect the officers and obviously protect the city against liability, and it has paid off significantly from that standpoint. However, because we've incorporated that, we had storage issues in our servers. We had the IT portion of it that we battle on a weekly basis. Some of the other things that we've incorporated with technology recently is taser cams. Tasers have been around for quite a while, but the video portion of it is fairly new within the last couple of years. And we moved into the taser cams, which was, again, it really protects the officer, and it's proven a number of times effective. But again, how do you manage that video technology when the officer actually has a viable video that they've taken, between the evidence, the storage of that, the downloading, the recording, the copying, media. I mean, there's a lot that that smaller departments don't have the staffing to handle. Whereas if you don't have it, you don't have to worry about that. but you don't have that benefit of the video and the coverage of the officers. So there is a balance. I've got one staff person that controls that, but again, that takes time, and it takes them away from their other duties. So those are just the two recent ones that we've gotten in the last 3 or 4 years. Probably a larger project in technology was regionally in our county went to what we call a CAD to CAD, which is our dispatch, computer-aided dispatch. We are able to transmit immediately the dispatch call to the other agencies for help, so they don't have to retype everything. It saves response time for our ambulances. I mean, if we get the call and we need an ambulance, we send them everything. They get it without having to call, and you don't have that telephone call for however long a telephone call takes, 20, 30 seconds, but they have it immediately, and that has saved response time considerably in that. But again, managing that and getting it installed, and it takes a lot of work and cooperation regionally, and we have a great county for that. I don't know if there is a secret. I think that, what I know from a managing point of view, and we have to really look at technology as how does it benefit not just your department, but the community. And I think the secret really is looking at the big picture of, is that technology viable for your community? Does it save the officers time so it puts them out on the street more? Does it, I think, does it save, an officer from an officer safety point of view? Is it something that the officer can rely on to protect them so they don't get hurt, such as tasers? Or, does it save the city liability costs if we're able to use our video equipment type that? I think planning is a big part. You have to evaluate the need. If the need is there, an agency really has to find a way to make it happen. And I think I talked briefly, but I think you really have to evaluate the value of that technology. Is it going to save you time, or is it going to cost you more time? Do you have to, we're looking at a project now where moving some things around technology-wise, it's going to create additional, when these people move, the records and the data entry and stuff like that gets left behind. Who's going to do that? And the existing staff's doesn't have time to do that. So we're evaluating additional staff. Well, if we add additional staff, of course there's an additional cost, then the overall project is too expensive, and it really doesn't, the value of it diminishes. So I think probably the secret is, from a management point of view, is long-range effective planning on how that technology affects your agency and your community. Oh, this is huge. This technology this week has just been at sometimes overwhelming with all the information that agencies are sharing. Each agency has brought a specific issue that they've looked at, and they all haven't been success stories, which is really a plus. It's not like this has just worked and this is wonderful and it'll work in your agency. No, this is a program or a plan that we put together, an agency put together, that failed, and this is why it failed, and this is what you need to look out for when you're in your planning. And it really opens up, I think, a lot of people, and myself, I'll speak for myself, that you can really see that there's more to it than just buying the piece of equipment. There's more to it than just buying software for your records management system. It's a lot of the research that goes into that and the valuation that we've learned from here and what the NIJ does is just so beneficial that we've been able to tap into. And I know for me, I'll take it back, and whether I get any equipment isn't really the issue for me. It's not so much obtaining equipment. It's obtaining the knowledge of what's there and how I can best apply that and planning for that in my agency.